Can rotting ever be good? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods, talking about nature right outside your front door. Maybe this time it's going to be inside your front door. I don't know. But what we're going to dive into is composting and why it matters and how it works and what you can do to get started today composting if that's what you choose to do. If you have a corner of your yard, a back porch, people even do it in bins under their sink. Composting is something that you can do. It's not just for farmers or eco off the grid kinds of people. It's a very simple way of creating free nutrient for the earth. And it's something that you can do for very low cost. So let's get our hands dirty in this. First of all, the basics of it is composting is decaying organic material, and it breaks down food scraps, leaves, paper, anything that's biodegradable into sort of a rich, dark, crumbly soil. The gardeners call it black gold because it's packed with all sorts of nutrients, and some of which you're not really supposed to put in your yard artificially. It can help other plants grow strong and healthy. Nature is already knows how to compost. When we have leaves in fall that pile up, get wet, and by spring they're gone. I'm someone who has a mulching mower. You will never see me raking my yard and then taking the leaves away. What I will do is I spread the leaves evenly in my backyard. I have a mulching mower and I take the bag off and I just let the whole thing mulch into my yard. And it's great. It's great for worms and fungi, bac- microbiome, and it's great for worms, fungi, microbes, the insects, the good ones and bad ones that live in our backyard. Composting is just something that helps this natural process along. I'm doing less work because I'm taking leaves that I don't want to rake up because it's too much effort and just putting them in my backyard to be used. That's one way of doing it. It helps in putting phosphorus back in into the yard. In my town where I live, we're not supposed to put phosphorus in artificially to our yards because eventually some of the leaves and extra fertilizer runs down into our lakes and causes blooms of bad things. So they don't want us adding phosphorus to our yard. The easiest way to add phosphorus to your yard is compost material that's in your yard back into your yard. The EPA says that if we can eliminate food waste by composting, we can actually remove 30% of what we throw away. So it's not just yard waste that we can recycle back into our yard, it's going to be food waste as well. It's a waste of energy, and water and nutrients that could be going back into the soil instead of filling up the landfill. So it's kind of cool that way too. But the question is, why should you bother with composting? Like I said, first of all, it reduces the amount of things we're throwing out in the waste. It is easier for me to do composting in some degree. Like I said, I am mulching my yard back into it, which is a form of composting, instead of raking my leaves, picking them up at bags, putting them out on the curb, or taking them to the composting area in my town. I just mulch it right in. Less work. It helps feed the soil. It helps make our soil in our backyard and our area healthier without chemicals, without having to buy chemicals. So it's also cheaper. And the other part too is that it kind of it's a closed loop, right? We're taking things of nature and putting it back into nature. That's kind of how our world was meant to be. So then the next part is about composting is you don't have to think about it as being complicated. The first thing is that you're going to have to just choose what kind of composting you want to do. Now, I mentioned my piece of it that I take the piles of area and I rake them throughout my yard and then I mow them in, and then by spring it's all gone. But other people will get backyard bins, and some of them are electronic composters. They rotate themselves so that they get air into the composting and help break it down. Some people have a square or a rectangle bin that they throw all the yard waste, scraps, that kind of thing, and then they stir it occasionally, like I said, to kind of get oxygen back in there. I have also in my backyard what is called a tumbler. And the idea behind the tumbler is it's this big plastic vat thing, and I stuff leaves, composting material into this, and then I seal it up and it has days of the week on it. So the idea is that I rotate it every couple of days. And so if I do it on Monday, then I will put it to Monday, meaning that's when I last composted, so I remember to do it. And then every couple of days, I just take it out for a roll in my backyard, helps get oxygen mixed in there, breaks up the mass a little bit, and that helps things compost faster. Then eventually, when I need compost, I can pull it out of this bin and I'll spread it around. There are something called worm bins, and that's great for apartments and smaller plots of land where you let worms eat your scraps and then turn them into kind of compost. It is low in odor and surprisingly fun. I had never heard of this until I started researching composting. There are electronic composters, and some of those are sold to be desktop types of things. And they incorporate heat. They grind the scraps into this kind of pre-compost piece, and then it composts. It's convenient. It might, like I said, go under your cabinet. It might go in the basement or a garage, but it's easy, but a little bit pricey. And so you got to pick kind of what makes the most sense for you. Like I said, my easiest composting is just mowing the stuff back into the yard. What you need to do when you have compost is that you should have a balance sort of greens or what they call browns. I always think of them as beiges too. I grow ornamental grasses, and so when I chop them down, I chop them into smaller bits and then you can compost them. They are good balance for between the greens, which might be yard clippings, and it might be a good balance to yard clippings, that kind of thing, or plant material. The greens, wet stuff, fruit, veggie peels, coffee grounds, fresh grass. The browns are going to be dry leaves, cardboard, paper towels. Like I said, the ornamental grass straw that I grow in my backyard. And so you want to kind of keep it as 2 parts brown to 1 part green. Too many greens, it gets slimy and smelly, but the browns will help break it down more slowly. And if you get too many browns, then it takes forever. The brown stuff takes a long time to go. So you kind of want that balance between it. Part of it is that you want to chop it into smaller pieces so that it breaks down. So I have these big, tall stems of grass. I cut it down into halves, and so maybe, I try to keep it around 4 inches or something like that. But the more you chop it up, the easier it will break down. And since the browns are the hardest one to break down, that is the one that I usually try the most to make sure it's into small pieces. It's sort of pre-chewing things up for the microbes that are about to come. And then again, we need oxygen in that bin. And so that's where you're going to store it. If it's in a like a square bin, you're going to take a pitchfork and stir it around. Or if you get a tumbler like I have, you're going to roll it around. Either way, when you have that kind of composting bin, you can make it work for you, whichever method you decide to do. And then you just wait. It takes a little bit, maybe a few months where it starts to crumble. It starts to get an earthy smell. It's not supposed to smell rotten. And it will start to look like soil. That's the idea behind it. Things to know too about it is that you don't want to put meat in there. You don't want to put seeds, things that have seeds in there. A lot of times, the biggest mistake I see with people composting is they will take weeds and throw them in there, which is a great idea. But if they have seeds in them, that compost will just get weedy. When you throw it around in your yard or you throw it in your garden, those seeds live and they will create more of a mess for you. So some ideas is that like I said, you might have questions about it. Is it going to smell? If your bin smells bad, it probably has too many wet greens. Add more brown greens. This is a continuous formula for it. You can put, like I said, cardboard, piece of paper, shredded leaves, straw from ornamental grasses. If for whatever reason you're at a time of year where you can't compost, some people will put food scraps in the freezer to keep it from decaying until their bin has room or it's the right season or the snow melted from it and so you can get it off into that area. Even some cities have pickup and drop off programs or city-wide composting places that will compost the material for you, and you can go to the city and pick up compost. The big warning with the city compost I've known from my own city is that, like I said, people will throw weeds in it, and there'll be a lot of seeds in that. But the other question is what if you get bugs? If you're getting bugs, is that a bad sign? And usually bugs are a good sign. That means that it's working, that those are scraps that are kind of turning into soil. If you start seeing flies around it, you can start burying your scraps under brown material. It almost acts like a little lid, or you can actually get a lid, get the kind of bin that has a lid on it. Some things that you can compost if you wish to, like I said, paper, cardboard, cotton balls, herbs and spices, dead houseplants, like I said, except for the seed parts of it, dryer lint, if it comes from natural fiber. But there's some cool things that you can go ahead and do it. And one of the things that I think is the most cool about composting is that even in decay, everything kind of has a purpose. I think it goes back to the clean forest idea I talked about in the previous podcast, that if you clean up your forest, the forest isn't healthy. But when material decays, dries up, turns into new soil, that's when a forest is healthy. But this is the same thing for composting. Every bit that we can throw in there is kind of bringing it back to soil again. And I think that, like I said, in the way, is how that this earth was built to be. And if we compost, it's not just about managing our waste or having good material so we can put in our gardens. It's about participating in a process that is as old as this earth. So it's kind of full circle, right? All right, everyone, I appreciate you watching this. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the chat channel. And you can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Tell a friend, like this. If you have anything that you want to say to me, or if you have topics that you would like me to talk about, please feel free to email me. Thanks so much. And remember, get out there and go compost something.